Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit different of a video. Why do I say that in every single freaking video? I don't know. I really don't. So today's video is going to be, I don't know really what this is. We are going to be talking about my favorite books of all time. I feel like when you really want to get to know somebody, you ask people what their favorite music is, what their favorite shows are, and that really gives you a pretty good indication as to who they are as a person. And so, in today's video, I figured I haven't made a video in a few weeks. I've been dealing with mess. I've been dealing with mess that is really not fun and has really mentally brought me down. And when I was thinking about making another video, I didn't want to do something really heavy like my Boys of Tommen plot summaries that I've been doing, because those books are very heavy and they're my favorite books. I love those books. They're just very heavy and I really want to do something lighthearted to step back into it. And so I figured, why not talk about my favorite books of all time? That is going to put me in a great mood. So that is what we are going to be doing today. So if you enjoy these types of videos and you enjoy a more casual booktube experience, feel free to like and subscribe. So I have been reading for as long as I can remember, and I want to say my first memory of like books was probably around first grade, and I was obsessed with Junie B. Jones. And I would force my pop to sit at our dining room table and I would read Junie B. Jones out loud to him because I was obsessed with like telling stories. That is like my introduction to books. I wasn't a big reader between the ages of like 4th grade up until probably 8th grade. 8th grade is when I really got back into reading. And the book that got me back into reading in 8th grade was the first book of this, I don't know if you would call it a series or like a duology. This one is The Next Person You Meet in Heaven, but the original book that I left the original one at my mom's house and I thought this was the first one. But the original book is The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. And I read this book in 8th grade. I vividly remember being obsessed with The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. We read it like in school as a class and I was obsessed. It was the first time in school I ever was like super engaged and excited to go to a class and like talk about something. I remember we got to watch the movie. I like cried like a baby the whole time. Everyone made fun of me and I don't care because it was just that freaking good. So the first book is about Eddie, and he works at an amusement park called Ruby Pier, and he dies saving a little girl from getting crushed by a ride that like goes off the rails. And when he dies, he meets 5 people in heaven who have passed on, that have impacted his life in one way or another from the time he's a very young boy till the day that he dies, basically. And so this book is about that little girl and her growing up. I don't want to spoil what this is because I feel like it'll ruin both of the books. This book was my like jumpstart back into reading. And again, I think this was actually 7th grade. I read the first book and I was obsessed. And that got me into finding clips of it on tumblr.com, which is going to lead us to the next book that absolutely changed my life. And I think if you were on Tumblr during the 2010s, this book is not going to come as a shock to literally anybody. This is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. Only if you were there will you understand the impact of The Fault in Our Stars and what this book did to culture and what this book did to middle school teenage girls across America. This book, I don't even have words. The memes, social media posts. This book I first saw on Tumblr. Everyone was talking about it. I read it. I'm sure everyone knows what this book is about. 2 teenagers who have cancer and they fall in love, and that's all I'm going to tell you about it because I don't want to spoil it. This is, today I would say, an easy read. Reading this in like 9th grade messed me up bad, and I remember crying about this book thinking life is so unfair, this is miserable, why would anyone write this, why do people read these things? I love sad books, and I blame The Five People You Meet in Heaven and The Fault in Our Stars for being like the first 2 books that really impacted me because they're both really sad. Basically, I love sad books, I love books that make me cry, and I love books that make me feel really big emotions. This did it for me in 9th grade. Then later on in high school, I was obsessed with Shakespeare, and I loved going to English class and learning about frickin' Shakespeare. I was in school between the years 2012 and 2016, and in 2013, a movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio was coming out for The Great Gatsby. I'd never heard about The Great Gatsby before. I had no idea what it was. And in that same year in English, before the movie came out, we read the book in class. And I remember this changing my brain chemistry for the rest of my life. When I was on Tumblr, I thought I was Jay Gatsby, tortured soul, so melodramatic, so ridiculous. But Jay Gatsby was like my hero. Like, as stupid as it sounds, especially if you know the story, as stupid as it sounds, I fully convinced myself that I was Gatsby. When the movie came out, I forced my best friend and my now husband, who at the time was my boyfriend, he was literally just like a 16-year-old boy, and I was dragging him to the movie theater every day after school to go see this movie. He got me this copy in, I want to say like 2013, and I remember I would literally steal the copies from my English teacher and bring them home so I could read this book. And then for, I don't know if it was Christmas or my birthday, my husband got me this copy, and it was so important to me that it was this specific copy with the eyes on it, because I wanted this tattoo so bad as a kid, and I still to this day kind of want this tattoo. Gatsby, he was a swindler, he was a scammer, played the system and became very rich, all awaiting his love to come back to him. And what a tragedy this ends up being, but this book changed me as a human being. Like, to this day, every year on my birthday, I have to watch this movie, and I have to like skim through this book just to remember who I am as a person. This book means so much to me in ways that I literally cannot talk about. But this book is so special to me. I read this book when I really needed to. My God, I love it. Now, after reading all those books, I loved romance. This is when I started to understand, especially after reading The Great Gatsby, I love love stories, and I love romance, and I love watching people fall in love in movies and people fall in love in books. And I remember being in Barnes & Noble in Connecticut. My boyfriend was doing his like traveling basketball, and we were in Connecticut, and our hotel was attached to a Barnes & Noble. You know, with my craze with The Fault in Our Stars, I just got finished reading these books, which is Looking for Alaska by John Green and then Paper Towns by John Green, and I was so obsessed. Spoiler alert if you don't want to know what happens in these 2 books, but they don't have happy endings for the couples. And then I read Gatsby, and I was just like, I want to see a couple that really makes it. Like, does that ever happen? And I found this book. This is Beautiful Disaster by Jamie Maguire. This book changed everything for me. Accompanying Beautiful Disaster, we then had Walking Disaster. These are like companion novels. This is this book told in the guy's point of view. These books changed the way I read books forever. These books got me into dark romance. These books got me into interconnected series, because these are just the first 2 books of the entire like Maddox Brothers series, and I read the entire thing obsessed. The first book is about a girl named Abby, and she goes to this university. I think it's called Eastern University. I haven't read this book in years, but it's called Eastern University, and there her dorm room gets, I think like the water, something about the water line, something happens to where she cannot be living in her dorm room for like a few months while they repair it. So she moves in with her best friend and her best friend's boyfriend and his cousin Travis. And my God, Travis Maddox changed the way I look at men for literally ever. But this original book is her and Travis falling in love and falling apart and being a mess and being crazy. If I had to recommend one or the other, I do prefer Travis's point of view in Walking Disaster. These are super quick to read. They make me cry. They're so nostalgic to me, and I literally would not be into the books that I'm into today if I never picked up these two books. These two books to me are like the gateway drug to everything I read today. This is just like a coming of age college romance with a lot of drama, a lot of drama about young people who don't really know a whole lot about the world yet. It's just classic college romance, and I absolutely love it. I recommend it to anyone who wants to get into dark romance. This is not super dark. I would not call this like dark romance. I would really call this like new adult coming of age romance. Like that's basically what this is, and it's so good. It's so good. And I remember I had such a crush on Travis Maddox. I was obsessed with him. And then when they cast Dylan Sprouse, I said, Zach from the Tipton? Okay, that's not what I pictured him in my head, but it's fine. Every few years when I want to remember who I was when I read these books, I always pick up Walking Disaster again, and it takes me right back in time to being who I was when I first picked these books up. And oh my, the nostalgia I feel just holding it. I feel like I'm 15 again. Do I think the writing holds up to today's standards? Absolutely not. This is just classic like 2012 to like 2015 romance books. This is like the cream of the crop of that era of new adult romance, and this led me directly into the woman that changed me forever, and that is going to be the one, the only Miss Colleen Hoover. Say what you want about Colleen Hoover. This woman was doing new adult romance better than anyone at that time period. And these two books, I have all of them. If I had to recommend them to anyone, the books that I remember like sitting and staring at a wall and like sob crying, making a million posts about on Tumblr, it's November 9 and Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Ugly Love is about a girl named Tate who moves in with her brother, and her brother is a pilot, and across the hall lives a guy named Miles Archer. I was obsessed with Miles Archer. I loved him, and then I hated him, and by the end I was so confused on how I felt about him. This book is when we get into Colleen kind of like dipping her toes into a little bit of mystery, and I don't want to give away the book because I remember being literally gagged when I got to the end of the book because I wasn't expecting at all where it was going, and maybe that's just me being like stupid. I at the time didn't know how to pick up on like foreshadowing and pick up on clues about where the story was going. I bet if I read it today I would look back and think, Alyssa, it was right there. Like it was right there the whole time, and you completely went so over my head. I can't remember how it was set up and if I just was too slow to get it, but when I got to the end of this, I was shook and gagged, and I absolutely loved these books. I loved all of Colleen Hoover's books. The first videos I really made on YouTube after I was like obsessed with makeup were about Colleen Hoover, and I remember in 2020 when everyone got on the Colleen Hoover bandwagon, I said I did that like 5 years ago. I was doing this, and now everyone has very mixed feelings about Colleen Hoover books, and I don't understand why, because they're just freaking good, quick reads and they get you out of reading slumps. That's the thing about Colleen Hoover books. Anytime I need to get out of a reading slump, if I just pick up one of her books, I remember why I love reading so much. And that's what all of these books are doing to me. Am I saying that the books that I'm talking about right now are the most incredible literature you'll ever find? No. But I'm saying that the way these books made me feel at different times in my life are the reason I still love to read today, and I'm open to reading so much today, is because of the way these books made me feel in the past. And so I love Colleen Hoover for what she did for reading. She made it mainstream again, and we have to clap and cheer for Colleen Hoover for that. So the next book that I am going to talk about is a book that literally made me uproot my life and move away from where I'm originally from in New York, because I read these books and I remember falling in love with this character. She altered my brain chemistry and made me look at life so differently. This book came to me at a very tumultuous time, I'll say. I read this book at like the end of 2015 going into 2016, and that was a very weird time in my life. And I read these books and I held on to these books like they were a life raft. I don't talk about these books the way I talk about literally any other books. And to this day, when people ask me for book recommendations, I don't care what they're looking for. I don't care what it is. I will always recommend the Lost Soul series by Eliza Freed. I can't even like look at the covers. I can't even look at the covers. I can't even believe I'm holding it. Like, I feel lucky to be holding this in my hand, because for years I read it on first it was a Nook, and then I bought it on my Kindle, and I just read it on my phone, on e-readers. And then I remember I made a video on YouTube about like my attachment, and it's still up. I can't remember all that I said in that video. I'm sure if I watched it back, I would be like, oh my God, Alyssa, what are you saying? You sound crazy. But I made the video and Eliza Freed saw it, and she sent me these books. She wrote me a little note and a little card, and she sent me the entire series. Literally, I look at this cover and I want to cry, because that is my girl, Charlotte Sinclair, and she changed my life. I read this book at the exact moment I was meant to, and it literally changed my entire life. These are on the top of my shelf. They have their own special spot on my bookshelf. No one is allowed to touch these in my house. These are like ancient text Bibles to me. Like, these are holy scriptures to me. It is a trilogy, and it tells the story of Charlotte Sinclair and Jason Lear. Just saying those names out loud really like hit me in the knees, and it like kind of knocks the air out of my lungs. But oh my goodness, I remember when I was a little bit younger, before I moved out of my mom's house, our basement flooded, and I had these in a secure spot in my closet in the basement. And I remember when it flooded, these were the first things I grabbed. My computer was down there, my phone, my cameras, everything I ever owned was down in that basement. And these were the first thing I grabbed. These books are about a girl named Charlotte who, her parents pass away. She falls in love with a boy named Jason Lear who lives in Oklahoma, but they are childhood best friends. And they go through it. I'm not gonna tell you anything else. Literally, I'm not gonna tell you anything else about these books. The whole story is about Charlotte. This is a coming of age series, and it's mainly about the character of Charlotte Sinclair and how she navigates life that keeps trying to take her down. That's literally the only way I can put it. Life is not good to Charlotte, and she has to navigate that. She has to figure out how to handle everything when she doesn't have her parents, and she falls in love with someone who, I don't even know how to put it. I don't even know how to word it. Just know she really goes through it. She really goes through it. She came to me at a time when I really needed her, and I, to this day, am forever grateful for Charlotte Sinclair and giving me strength, because my God, she is one of the bravest soldiers. I will always recommend those books to anyone who's even a little bit interested in reading anything at all, because what those books gave me, priceless. Now, another book that I want to say really changed my perspective on things and really like impacted me in a way that gave me a new appreciation for life is a book called Bad Idea by Nicole French. And yes, this is a love story, and I love the love story. I do not have the physical copy. I've only read it on ebooks. It is about a girl, I think her name is Layla, and she meets this FedEx driver. I think his name is Nico. I hope I'm remembering it right. She works in an office and he delivers packages to her. And the story from there on out is incredible. It touches on so many things. They're from New York, so I'm also from New York, so seeing a lot of places that I have seen in real life and reading that, I always think that's so cool in books. Nico takes care of his family, he takes care of his mother. His mom is an immigrant, and reading her story, we're not even gonna get into that conversation right now, but reading her story gave me such an appreciation for other cultures that I would know nothing about had I not read those books. And I read those books years ago. I was a senior in high school. I read this book in, I want to say 2016, I read the series, and wow, like to this day, I remember everything that happened in that book. Do you know how rare that is for me? I can read a book and I could scream, cry, laugh to it. Eventually, I read more books, and those books that I loved so much leave my brain. The Bad Idea trilogy by Nicole French, I still remember everything that happened in that book. The way it made me feel, the way I cried when it came to Nico's mom. Layla in the book, she is biracial. I'm biracial. She's half white and half Brazilian, and he is Dominican. I just remember having such a different perspective when I read those books for the first time. And again, I was like a senior in high school in the year of 2016. I'm just saying, it was a time when those conversations were happening a lot around me, and I didn't have a super clear, independent opinion on it. And I remember I read that book and it completely opened my mind, and that is what books are for. And so I love that book. Changed me in so many ways, changed the way I think. Do I think this is like the pinnacle of literature for talks of immigration? No. But I remember as like a 17-year-old girl who knew nothing in the year of 2016, when the world seemed to be going crazy, it was the first book that ever talked about anything like that I had read. And I remember it opening my mind to things it had never considered before, especially as someone who is biracial, someone who grew up in New York around a lot of people of different cultures. I was in a little bubble. I really appreciate those books for what they taught me and what they opened my mind to at that time period. Now, a few years later, we are at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's 2020. I am just zooming through books. Book Talk was born in 2020. Everyone is reading at home. Everyone is bored. I had been reading at that point for years and years and years, and I was reading the same things. It was always like college romance, young adult romance, new adult romance. I was getting into a little bit of dark romance. I was reading a few series that I really loved, but they weren't like hitting me the way books used to hit me, and I was kind of just reading to pass time. And then I picked up at like the height of the pandemic. I'm thinking between the months of like May to like July, and I was reading books, and I picked up Stay With Me by Nicole Fiorina. This was her like debut novel, and oh my God, this book reminded me of why I love reading and what it is about reading that makes me feel things so intensely. This book was my reminder. It was my return. This book is about a girl named Mia who gets sent to a reformatory school in the UK, and it's called Doler, and she meets a boy named Ollie, and she describes herself as someone who has her feelings completely turned off, and we learn it's because of some things that have happened while she was young. And this book is about her processing all of those things and learning how to cope and learning how to like function as a human being, while also learning how to love and how to let love in, and how love can be outside of your own family, how to basically fall in love when you don't recognize that emotion. This was also my introduction to this author, Nicole Fiorina. This is the third book in the trilogy, and my God, by the time I got to this one, at the height of the pandemic, when the world has literally felt like it would never be the same, this book was the only book that I remember from that whole year that took my breath away, and I loved it. Specifically at the end, there's a note from our male main character. I remember on nights when it literally felt like the world was going to end, I would reread this letter over and over and over again and think like, no matter what, everything's gonna be fine. It'll still be fine. If the world goes to complete hell, we'll figure it out and we'll make do. But that is what these books did for me. I think about Mia and Ollie all the time. They are so deeply ingrained in my heart. Like, I love these characters so much. I think of these characters as like people I knew a long time ago, and I think about them and I wonder what they'd be doing right now. I don't know. I just love when books hit you like that. Like, they feel like people you once knew really well that you've kind of drifted apart from, and they pop into your brain every once in a while, and you just wonder, how are they doing? I hope they're doing great. I hope life worked itself out for these two tortured souls, these two tortured poets, if you will, if you know Oliver Masters, the tortured poet himself. I can't say enough good things about Nicole Fiorina and all of her writing. Her writing, everything I just said about these books is how I feel about every single book that she has. But I remember when life felt dark and the pandemic had us all in its clutches, these books did it for me. They really took me out of doom scrolling and they took me out of the apocalypse. For that, I am always going to be grateful to these books, and they will always hold a place in my heart, and I will always recommend them. All of these books I would recommend to literally anybody. Maybe 2 years after that and the pandemic was happening, I had moved out of my mom's house, and I was pregnant with my daughter, and I had my son, and I was in this new place. I've never lived anywhere like where I live now in all of my life. I was very pregnant. I had a lot of trauma with having babies, and I was very scared, and I was in a very dark mental state during my last pregnancy with my daughter. And I remember I was looking for another book that was gonna hit me the way all of these other books have hit me before. This is when I turned to BookTok for the first time, and I was seeking out books that would fully like take me out of real everyday life, take me out of my brain. I wanted a book that was going to literally hit me in the head, hit me in the gut, hit me in the knees, take me to the floor, change the way I think, change the way I felt. And I saw it all over BookTok, and I was really iffy about it because this is YA, so this is young adult, so keep that in mind. But I was looking for books, and this one caught my eye, and my God, am I glad that I read it. This is If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. Just thinking of this book makes me want to cry. I need a minute. Oh my God. Okay. So This book, I'm trying so hard not to tear up just looking at it. This book is about a girl named Autumn. It's about a girl named Autumn, and I'm like trying to keep it together. This is about a girl named Autumn, and she has grown up with her mom's best friend's son. His name is Finney Smith, and Autumn has always had a bit of a crush on Finney, but as they have gotten older, they've grown apart, and they have a very weird relationship now. And this book tells the story of how that relationship came to get so weird and uncomfortable and tangled up. And that's really all I can say about that one without spoiling anything. And I'm trying my absolute best to keep this video like spoiler free from all the plots of these books. But my God, you will never be the same. I can't even look at it. I can't even look at this book. I read that in, I think it was 2022, and maybe a year or two later, the author announced this book. And I said, oh my God. And if this book hurt, I literally can't look at it. I need to like keep it over here, and I can't look this book in the eye. I will never open this book again. I read this book one time, and I read it on my Kindle, and as soon as I was done with it, I said, I don't think I am emotionally sane enough to ever pick this book up again. I'm looking at it, and it's literally like crushing my soul to look at this book. I can't tell you anything about this one without completely ruining the first one, so I'm not going to say anything about this one. Just know, you want to feel something, you're in a reading slump, you feel numb in life, you feel like you're going through day to day, you want to be invested in someone else's story, these two books, wow. I cannot give too much away because I don't want to spoil it, but oh my God. I don't even really have words without ruining the whole thing. Beautifully structured, beautifully written. I'm trying not to cry. This is a beautiful book. It's a beautiful, wonderful book, and I'm literally tearing up just remembering some of the scenes in this book. Jack. Sometimes life has to keep moving on. That book will do it for you. That book will do it for you. Come on now. Come on now. I could not make this video without talking about the book that has gotten me to start making content again. Let's just start from the beginning. After I read those books and I found those books through BookTok, I decided, you know what, BookTok has some good recommendations. What else could I find on there? Now, I came from the golden age of dystopian series. I was reading books when the Hunger Games were coming out. I remember Twilight premiering as the books were coming out. I was reading books during that golden age of like Tumblr and Instagram, when books were like a part of culture in a completely different way. Every book was turning into a movie, and it was just a fun time to be there and a fun time to be part of that community. I was the biggest Poland Banana Books fan. I still love Christine. I love every time she posts to this day. For the last decade, she posts a video. I'm sitting there watching it. My husband recognizes her. Every time I'm watching her on my TV or on my phone, my husband is like, is that the book girl? And I say yes. She's my favorite booktuber of all time. And I remember learning that BookTube was now BookTok, and there were a lot of people talking about books on BookTok. And the one I kept seeing a lot about, and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like that. I kind of want to get out of like the YA genre. I'm not super into it. And this is around the time I was reading a lot of Penelope Douglas and Rena Kent. I read through all those big series, and I love those series. I love, love, love them. But one day I was like, you know what? I'm reading a lot of the same books, a lot of dark romance, a lot of morally gray characters. I need a palate cleanser. I need something that's going to remind me of being young and loving books. I was really looking for something like Colleen Hoover. That is what I was in the mood for. After discovering Book Talk, I read Haunting and Hunting Adeline, the Legacy of God series. I read all of the Devil's Night series. That is literally to this day one of my favorite series of all time. And I was reading through all of those and I was like, okay, I love these books, I love these stories, I love this vibe, but I need a palate cleanser. And so I logged on to Book Talk and I was introduced to, I can't even look at it. I can't even look at it. I was introduced to our dear friends, Johnny and Shannon. And while I loved Johnny and Shannon, I read the book and I said, this was exactly what I needed. This is a big boy. It's about two teenagers in Ireland who fall in love and really help each other out. And I loved this book, right? I absolutely loved this book. And I thought, this is great. This was a perfect palate cleanser. And then I was told that there is another one. And I thought, that's amazing. And all throughout this book, we meet our FMC's brother. And I was like, oh my gosh, the next books are gonna be about her brother. I can't wait to pick those books up. And I waited and I waited and I met Joey Lynch. And I said, who is this Chloe Walsh? And why is she writing incredible stories? Why am I invested in a bunch of teenagers from Ireland? Why do I care so much? Joey Lynch told me exactly why. Chloe Walsh's writing of characters, of making you fall in love with these people and rooting for them and wanting to see them do so good. I loved the 13s. But when I got to the 6s, I said, I want to see these characters win. I'm invested in these stories. Can we keep going? And you know what? Redeeming 6. This book took my breath away. Again, I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm not gonna tell you what occurs in this book. Redeeming 6 took my breath away. Joey Lynch had me staring at a wall, hysterically crying. If you know someone who's ever struggled with addiction, or you can relate, you have someone in your family, dated someone who struggles with addiction, the way you can understand Joey Lynch's mind is priceless. I am so grateful for this book. Again, this is one of those books that gave me a completely new perspective and a new appreciation for the struggle of being a human being and having to wake up every day when your literal human instinct tells you not to. And this book really altered me as a person. I love the first 3. Don't get me wrong. If you have me on TikTok, you know those books mean so much to me, but it wasn't until I got to the 4th one that I said, I need to go back and I need to reread everything because I need to even more understand Joey Lynch and everything we learn about him, what he goes through. I'm gonna start tearing up. What he goes through and what he teaches you about life. Wow, 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 wow. Thank you, Chloe Walsh, for giving us Redeeming 6, because this book, I literally don't have words to describe the way this book made me feel the first time I read it. I wish I could read it again for the first time and really appreciate while I was reading it that I was reading a masterpiece and that it was going to change my outlook on everything about the way I interact with people. The empathy that this book has given me. Redeeming 6 is just one of those that I can't even explain to you. I can't even use the words good and amazing and like storyline in this. The appreciation for the human experience that this book has given me, unlike anything I've ever read before, unlike any of these other books I have read. I'm thinking of Joey at the end of this book I can't even talk about it. I literally, I have to put it down. I can't even talk about it. That book changed everything. And then we get to Gibbsy, and I absolutely love this book. I love Gibbsy. I love Claire. I remember reading this after redeeming 6 and thinking, where's Joey? I just want to see Joey the whole time. But I was given a look on another character in this book named Lizzie Young. And I remember after I read that book and it was announced that Lizzie Young's book was coming next, I remember waking up at the crack of dawn. As soon as Target opened, as soon as Barnes & Noble opened, my Target and Barnes & Noble are literally right next to each other. And I remember thinking, if it's not at one store, it'll be at the other store, and I'm gonna harass every worker in this store if it means I get to walk out with this book. If I thought Joey Lynch gave me an appreciation for people who have to wake up every morning, even though their human instinct is telling them not to, these two books, Redeeming 6 and Releasing 10, I can't even, another 2 books, I can't even look at them because of the way they live in my brain 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. These 2 books, Releasing 10 has been the most recent book in this lineup of books that have like psychologically changed the way my brain works, and it has given me a whole lot more empathy for people who are going through things that I know nothing about. And it makes you realize you shouldn't be to people. You shouldn't take your bad days out on other people, because you have no idea the silent battles that people are going through in their day-to-day lives, and how hard it is for some people to want to get up every morning, have to literally force themselves to participate in life, and you don't have to make it hard by being a person. And so that is what this book and all of Boys of Tommen has taught me, is to just, if you're having a bad day, you don't need to take it out on strangers, because you never know when you go outside who you're going to encounter that is hanging on by a thread and needs your one little, a smile at a grocery store, or a wave, or a nod, just to acknowledge that they're here and that they're seen, that there are people who acknowledge them and notice them. You just never know who's hanging on by a thread. That is really what Chloe Walsh has taught me through the Boys of Tommen series. Okay, y'all, so that is going to be it for me today, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was kind of random and it was a little bit weird. I don't know. This was not like structured in any way. I didn't write anything down for this video. I just went through some of the books that have been a source of like comfort for me over the years, books that I just love talking about, books that like mean so much to me and have like hit me in the chest and have had an impact on me as a person, an impact on me as like a fellow human being to others. And I don't know, I just feel like this is really what books are about. And today, making a video after not making one for a few weeks, and I really just wanted to talk about something that makes me happy, things that I enjoy talking about, which are my favorite books of all time. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and it wasn't too weird and too boring and too random. But thank you guys so much for watching. My next video is going to be my final deep dive in Releasing 10. Buckle up, y'all. I knew when I stopped that video that this was going to be the part of the book that would be so hard for me to get through, and I have been making this outline for like 2 weeks because I don't like reading the end of Releasing 10. I do not like reading the end of that book. It is not fun where we end up with Releasing 10, and the fact that we have to cover that in the next video, I am kind of dreading it. So we're gonna have to get that video up next. But thank you guys so much for watching. All of my social medias are always listed down below if you're interested in following elsewhere. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video. So bye.